Hi everyone, welcome back to Bernina Club for 2022. Over the summer I've been doing a little bit of sewing, a lot for my grandchildren, but I've also been doing a little bit getting ready for Bernina Club for the year. So there's been some patterns that I've been wanting to make for a while, and one of them was a monster pattern, and I'd never really thought about getting it done, but we got some really cool fabric in at work. So I have made my little monster. This is him here. I've attached the pattern to your notes, so you're probably wondering why I gave you the pattern. But it all came about because we got this monster fabric in, which I think's a little bit cute. Now when I put it online, I thought the squares were about 4 inches big, really big pattern, and I was homesick. And my husband brought me home the fabric, and I realised it was a really little cool little print, so I decided to make up the little pattern. And I'm going to make some more for the little grandies, but we've got some really little grandies that are under 1, so I thought I'll make them one, and I'll put some crinkly stuff in their legs, I'll put a squeaker in their tummy, and I won't use eyes that they can bite off. I will just draw some eyes in or freehand quilt the eyes. So yeah, it's a real cute little monster to make, and you can make him a happy monster. He's supposed to have a tongue that pokes out, but I thought, oh, that'll just go wrong with the grandchildren, because then that's all they'll do. So yeah, that's just a little bit of fun, using up some fabric scraps, taking a little pom-pom out of the kids' craft area, which is really cute. And then with Easter coming, we did these last year, but I just thought I'd remind you. These are just the little Easter bunny bags that you can make. And again, just using scraps of fabric. And it's got a little zip in there, so you can put some Easter eggs in there. There's a little pocket there, you can put a little Easter bunny in there or whatever. And again, you could use felt for the eyes. I used googly eyes because I had them. And another little pom-pom out of the kids' craft area, and then I gave him a pom-pom tail. So that's just a little fun thing you can make also for Easter. So yeah, Easter is coming, not far away. So those are a couple of things I've done. Now the other pattern I have given you is a free pattern online, and it was called a stationery pouch. So I thought, oh, I'll make that. And when I made it, I realized that is so small. So I have made the pattern bigger, which I'll show you and share with you. So this is just a little cute little pouch, and I've just used plastic studs, and it actually can be reversible. So this one was made just using a like a iron-on palm, and it just doesn't have a lot of body to it. So whenever I make pouches or bags, I always use soft and stable. So the next one I made was this one here. And so I decided to quilt it using Orifil 12 weight quilting thread, which I really liked. And you can see I've made it bigger, and I put 3 studs on this one, and I decided to stitch this in to give it some shape. So I've just tweaked it together, stitched it, and given it a little bit of shape, and I do like that. But then I decided you didn't see enough of the base fabric, so I've readjusted the pattern again for you, and I made my 3rd one. So sometimes when you're homesick and you're not too sick to be in bed, it's quite nice to have time in your sewing room. So this is the 3rd one that I've made. So this one I made out of some lovely bright spot and some sewing fabric, and I put a little tab on each side because I've actually made a handle just out of the spot fabric. And again, I have tweaked in here and stitched it to give it some shape. So that's the size I've ended up with, and that's the size of the pattern you will have if you want to make it. The instructions are exactly the same as the original one I gave you, but I've just stitched it in, stitched it in the side. So that is the finished result. So that was a little bit of fun, having time to actually do that. The next thing is we've had an extremely hot summer, and going outside, especially in New Zealand, you can get very, very burnt. So my niece wanted me to make her one of these tops. So I thought I'd share it with you because it's a very, very easy pattern. So there's a time and a place for chiffon fabric. So this is such a lovely light weight that it's really nice for a covering over a singlet or a singlet top, or just when you need something to cover yourself in the summer. It is literally 2 strips of fabric. So I'm going to show you how you make it, and this top can be worn 2 ways. It can be worn this way with whatever depth you decide to make. So this would be for somebody with a bigger bust than me. So I only have mine half a metre this way, and I've made this one 60 centimetres. So you can wear it with your 3 buttons down the front, 3 buttons down the back, or you can turn it sideways and wear it this way. This one's too wide for my shoulders. So I would probably put my first buttons there and there. This one's a bit wide for me. And by doing this, you've got a lovely top that this is the length you've cut, and it hangs this way. And it looks really cool with this because the spots go that way. So it's a top that can be worn both ways. You could also make this for coming into winter out of merino. It'd be really, really nice, just as a nice covering. So I'm going to show you how you do that. Now, with chiffon, you can do 2 things. You can do the method I've shown you where you either sew it on the sewing machine and you double fold the seams, or you rolled edge. So here's one that I've just got ready, and I've rolled edged it. So this is half a metre of fabric by the width of the fabric, which is 150 centimetres wide, or it might even be 160 centimetres wide, depending on the one you've purchased. Now when you roll edge, you end up with a tail on each corner, like this, and you just dab a bit of fray check, wait for it to dry, and then you cut those off, and that's how you finish rolled edging. It's very, very easy. So you do 2 pieces of fabric exactly the same. Now what I do is I use this thread, which is poly neon Madeira silky thread, and I use that in my blue looper when I'm doing my rolled edging on chiffon, and that is the only colour that you see on your rolled edging. So it's really, really nice, and I also use it when I'm sewing it together. So you need to find the right side of your fabric. So here's the right side of my fabric facing up. I'll do those edges later. Get your other piece of fabric, make sure you've got the right side facing up. And if you can see that, the right side is very, very neat and tidy, and it's rolled right over. So that's why it forms the rolled edging. It gives a lovely finish. So put your edges together. Oh, actually, first off, I'm going to find the halfway mark, because then that makes it easier for the next step. Find the halfway mark of the length of your fabric and just mark it with a pin or a clip. A pin's better because it's more accurate. Like so. And then lay this down. It's very slippery, so I've got to just be careful. Now, this mark here is your centre back. So the distance from here to here and here to here will be your shoulders here. Okay, so if you're very narrow across here, you might make the distance from here to here narrower than the next person. So for me, it's 18 centimetres from here to here and here to here. Okay, so I'm just going to mark 18 centimetres on there and there and there to there, and I'll mark that with a pin, a bent pin, may I say. That one is very bent, but it won't matter for this. So just mark that. I don't mark it with a pen because I do not want to mark on my garment. And there. Now, this pin now comes out, and this is now your shoulder seam. If that's too wide, you make it narrower. If it's not wide enough, you make that wider. Okay? Now what you do is you measure from here down to here and down to here 15 centimetres. Actually, I'm just going to check that measurement. That looks wide for me. Maybe I changed it. I'm just going to double check. I see I am a bit narrower than that. I did that 36, and on my model I'm actually 34. So I'm just going to change that. It did look a little bit, oh, this isn't for me, actually. This is for someone else. So I'd make mine 34, whereas this is 36. So now what I do is I measure from this pin 15 centimetres and 15 centimetres, and from this pin 15 centimetres and 15 centimetres, and that gives me my 3 buttons, my marks. So 15, and you do the same on the other end, but I'll just show you one end, and 15. Okay, so now I put my 2 pieces together like so. So you just want them sitting together like that, and you want to put your pin. So the first one is the most important one. You want to get this sitting together like so. And what you actually do is you're just going to stitch this one together, then stitch this one together, then stitch this one together, and you just want to tack it together. So what I do, you can use either of these feet. So this is the number 20 open toe foot, and it's just so you can see where you're going. You can see exactly the width you're doing and everything. So the open toe foot, and for these bigger machines, they do have a 20C foot or 20D foot, and they have a bigger opening as well. Okay, so just remember with all the new machines to tell the machine the foot you're using so that you don't get into trouble by breaking needles and things. So on this machine, if you can see the screen, I'm just going to check that you can see the screen there. Yes. So I'm going to go into here. I've got to move. Is that it? Okay, I'm going to go into here and I'm going to touch my picture of my foot, and I'm going to go to 0 to 9, and I'm going to punch in 20, and I'm using 20C today, so I touch 20C and then close out. So now it's showing me my 20C foot. I'm going to put my machine onto zigzag, and I want it to be about 4. I'm going to drop my feed dogs down, and this picture here is going to go yellow. There you go. I've dropped my feed dogs down. So now it's just going to sew in one place, and I'm just going to do maybe 6, and it's only to hold it. I sew the buttons on after I've done this step. Okay, so now I'm going to put on the correct foot. You'll notice here that I have put on the silky thread, and I've just got a green thread underneath. So I just want to have it the same, so it's going to look really nice. You're not going to see this part anyway, but I'm just going to come here and very carefully turn my work around, take my pin out, make sure I center this on my foot, put my needle down so that it's on the left hand side of one of the sides of my rolled hemming, and it's going to zigzag to the other side. So I've just centered it, and I'm hold my thread, and I've basically butted my 2 pieces together. They're not overlapping, they're just butted. Now I'm just going to stitch 6, basically. Then I'm going to cut my thread, and then I'm going to come down to my next one. And remember, I've only put a pin on one side, so I can now pull this nice and flat, sit it down, put my needle down, take my pin out so that I'm holding my work, make sure it's sitting nice and flat and even, and then zigzag again. 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, I've lost my bobbin thread. One moment, what did I do? I lost my bobbin thread, so if that happens, just make sure you pull that top one out. I don't think I'll use the cutter then, because maybe that doesn't like to cut that thread. I'll just pull it up. So we'll try that again. Come back. Oh, lost my mark. Of course I lost my mark. 15 centimetres. Put my pin back in there so I know where I am. like so. Put my pin in straight, hence why I only pin one side. Pop it back under, lay it flat, put my needle down on my left, which is on the left hand side of my stitching. Lay this flat so you can see that. Lift this out, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I won't use the cutter this time, I'll just lift up, pull my work down. It's probably better not to cut that. This top part of that pin is my mark. Make sure this is sitting flat, come down, butt it together, needle to the left. Nice. Take the pin out. That's just your mark. You could mark it with something else, but I just like to do it that way so I don't have any marks on it. Make sure that, I lifted it up. Make sure that's sitting flat and just. Okay, lift it up, take your work out. Now those are only to hold it. They're just a tacking stitch. They're nothing more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew my buttons on. Now, we have a proper button sew-on stitch on our sewing machines that people don't tend to use because they are worried. They think that it's not going to hold and lots of things, but it does. So I'm just going to cut these threads under here just so that everything's nice and neat and tidy to show you how you sew your buttons on by machine, and they do work. Obviously, I don't normally use a silky thread because I want a strong button. But for this, I can because I've already tacked it and it gets sewn quite a few times. So now I'm going to move sideways and I'm going to show you where you change your foot again. So you come to here. Yeah. So this foot is called, oh, what have I done with it? Here it is here. This foot is called an 18 foot. It's a very clever foot. So it has little rubber pads to hold the needle down, the button down, and it has a little bar in the center. So I remember years ago when I was sewing some buttons on a jacket and my mum said, put a toothpick down and sew over the toothpick, and I thought she was nuts. But that is what this bar does. It's so that if you're needing to make your button higher with thread underneath your button, it raises it up so it can go through thick fabric. So this little bar can go up and down and you can make the button stitch go higher if your button needs to sit up higher on your garment. It's quite clever, but for this it's down flat. So it's foot number 18, and if you have a look now on the screen, I have got all the feet here, and I'm going to go 0 to 9 and I'm going to punch in 1, 8, and I'm going to touch number 18 and it's showing a star picture there, and that's the stitch I'm going to use, the foot I'm going to use. Beg your pardon. Now I've got to go and find my stitch. So I go to buttonholes and I scroll to the next page. I can actually extend this out so I can see everything on my buttonhole feature. So this picture here, number 60, is my sewing on button stitch. Okay? And there it is there. You can have it with the feed dogs up or the feed dogs down. It's going to still make the stitch. So I'm now going to put on this foot. Now, 9 times out of 10, a button, these holes will be 4 millimeters apart. So the machine is set for a 4 millimeter apart button. It's very, very rare that it is not that size. If you're not sure, you can measure it with your little sewing gauge and make sure that those holes are 4 millimeters apart. They are exactly 4 millimeters apart. So I just put, see my little gauge, I just put it between the holes and that's the measurement, and it's definitely 4 millimeters. So I don't have to worry about breaking a needle. Okay, because what this stitch does is it stitches on the left, then it does a zigzag, and then it stitches on the right, then it does a zigzag and it stitches on the left, then it does a zigzag and it stitches on the right. and that's it. So you just keep sewing until the machine has stopped. But I have a secret. If you use your glue stick, which I forgot last week, if you use your glue stick and you glue your button on, it will not move. So if you don't have one of these feet, and even if you do, sometimes you have a very slippery button, if you just pop a little bit of glue on the back of your button, like this, and then you put it where you're wanting it, one moment, cool button, you put it where you want it on your top, exactly over your row of stitching, and hold that for a minute. That will hold on there till you're ready to stitch it. It's quite good. The best thing about these glues, this is the sew line glues, these do not gum up your needle. So you don't have to worry about stitching it and all the gum goes up your needle. That does not happen with the sew line pens, glue pens. Okay, so now I can come up to here. Have I got that exactly centered? No, because I wasn't looking. Where's my, there it is there. And you can lift it up and re-stitch it, re-put it down. It's so good. So just hold that for a minute. And I'm going to start off with my needle in the left hole. That is so much easier than holding it. And you line the little, I'll show you. Here's my needle. So you line the bar of the foot right through the two holes. And that's how you know it's going to stitch perfectly. Okay? So now I'm going to put my needle down on my left, and because it's set the right width, all I do is watch the machine do the work. So I just hold it, and it's going to lock off on one side, zigzag, lock off on the other side, zigzag, lock off on the other side, zigzag, and lock off on the other side. Done. Now, because there's a bar going through the stitch, I lift it up and I pull it backwards. Okay? Then I come on to the next one. All right? And I think I would rather actually put that thread on my bobbin, because the bobbin thread I've got in it is not exact and I can see it. So I think next time, which I did during class, is I put the same thread top and bottom. So again, I'm going to glue it. So much better. So much better. By the way, if you're using this glue during the course of the day, instead of putting the lid on and off, just get a little dish and put a paper towel and dampen the paper towel so it's wet, and then you can just put your glue stick in there and it won't dry out during the course of the day. So that saves you having to put it down, put it away, get it out, and it just makes sewing quicker. Okay, so I'm putting this on again and centering it over my mark. Hold it down. So good. Make sure my thread's on the left hand side of my bar. Center it. The little rubber feet hold on. Now this foot's available for all the old machines as well. It's not just for the new machines. And I did notice that some of the old ones don't have these little pads on them. Oh, one of my pads has fallen off. But you can buy them to put on them. So cool. Look at that. Just fixed it. One of my pads had fallen off. I must have knocked it. So you can actually buy the pads to put on the feet that don't have the little pads, because it makes it thicker and holds it better. Clever. Right, so line it up. Make sure it's lined up. And then just sew. Cool, hey? Needle up. Lift your foot and just slide your fabric out. Okay, one more and then you will have it sorted. Now that one's sewed much, much better, so I think I'll take the other one off and redo it. Again, see, wasting time because I'm taking off the lid, unscrewing it, putting it on here, whereas I could just have it in a dish and away I go. Cool. And it sticks to your fingers, sticks to everything. But it washes out. Great. Great product. I use it a lot. I use it for putting in my zips. I use it for putting on my buttons. It's very, very good. See, look, that's holding really, really well. And now I just put this one onto here, Make sure it's nice and centered. Make sure you line up that first one and the foot holds it. So clever. Locks it off, zigzags, locks it off. Oh, I should have pulled that, cut that thread. One moment. Just pulled up my bottom thread. I'll just cut it. There you go. Okay. Done. And needle up. And pull it out. And that is how easy it is. So you just sew your 6 buttons there, and you can cut the thread. You don't have to pull it through and tie it, and too stressful. And there you have your buttons, and now that's how quick it is to make a top. Okay, so this fabric is very, very cheap. At the most you'd pay $10.50. Our Bernina Club special is $5 for Bernina Club ladies. So if anybody's watching this that has joined Bernina Club, obviously you're the only ones watching this, you can have this fabric for $5 a metre during this month. Okie dokie, which is nearly ended, so I'll give you next month as well. So yeah, it's all, we've got lots and lots cut out, ready to go, but that is how simple it is to make one of these tops. And the only difference is if you want it longer in here, is that's when you buy more fabric. So 50 centimetres for both sides you buy a metre, 60 centimetres for both sides you buy a metre 20. So it's a very, very cheap top. It will cost you more for the buttons. So I hope you enjoy that, and when we come back we're on to linen.